Hey everyone, I'm Amanda, and this is Mommy's Reading Chair. Okay guys, my November TBR was 4 books. That was my goal. With an infant and a toddler in the house, I thought that was going to be very ambitious. But not only did I completely crush my 4-book TBR, I actually read an additional book start to finish and started a 6th one. So I read 5 books in completion and started number 6. So I'm already like 40 pages into my December list and I just could not be happier. So my November TBR was an interesting mix of books. And you'll probably notice very soon that it's a very interesting mix of reviews as well. The first book I read in November was A Million Little Pieces by James Frey. I actually started it in October, but I read the majority of it in November, so I'm counting it as a November read. It's a little bit of an older book. It's been on my shelf for ages, and I think I grabbed it at a library sale. I believe it was also copyrighted 2007-ish era, which was the end of high school, early college for me. So it was not on my radar to read at the time that it was released, but I did remember that there was some sort of controversy surrounding this book, and I didn't know what it was. And I decided to read the book prior to looking up any information on it because I didn't want the controversy from years and years ago to impact how I enjoyed or did not enjoy the book. So I was reading it and I actually almost put it down and stopped because the writing style was super annoying. The beginning of the book was, and for actually like half of the book, the sentences were super short. There was very little grammar at all. Like there were no quotation marks in any sort of dialogue, and the sentences were so repetitive. And I thought, this cannot be this whole book. It can't be. It's so bad. But as the book went on, it got less repetitive. He still did not heed any sort of grammar rule. But that aside, the sentences became more complex. The thoughts became a little bit more complete. And I actually think that may have been intentional. I don't know for certain if it was intentional, but I feel like it could have been, because in the beginning, this character, James, was severely, severely drug and alcohol addicted to the point of his life was going to be cut short very, very soon if he did not stop on the path that he was headed on. So the story is this man who is in this rehabilitation center, and it is the process of him becoming sober, which is a heavy topic and it can be very difficult to read. So I had a hard time reading some of the scenarios in this book, putting aside the writing style that drove me nuts. The story itself was somewhat difficult to stomach. That being said, as it went on, I found that I was really rooting for the guy. I really wanted him to turn his life around. I was very invested in a couple of the other characters. And so I wound up giving this book a solid 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read all of the controversy and I watched all of the videos on YouTube surrounding this book. And I lost a little bit of respect, but I'm not really 100% sure what is true or not, as with anything on the internet. Essentially, this man was on the Oprah show back in, I think, 2007. It's been a long time. This book was an Oprah book club pick. He did this interview and it was really emotional because he was telling his story and how this book was how he dealt with these things in his life and how he was still clean. And it was just a very heartwarming and this wonderful story with a good ending. And then it comes out that none of it's true. Well, maybe some of it's true, but that the majority of it was made up, which is so upsetting. Oprah really, really gave it to him. Let me tell you, I feel like you don't want to make Oprah mad. Like, of all the people, you don't want to make that woman mad. And she laid it on thick, and he looked like he was about to cry. Maybe he did. But man, it made me feel like I was lied to for however many pages this book is. It didn't make me change the rating of the book. I think the fact that I was very invested in the people in this book, and I wanted to know how they turned out, how the book ended, I decided to keep my rating at a 3, because if this had been advertised and categorized as fiction, I would have felt the same way about the characters. I would have made my rating a 3-star because I was still invested in the characters, real or not. But it did make me a little bit mad. And I can see how the general populace at the time, I mean, this being picked as an Oprah book club book, I mean, you know this was read by a ton of people. So, disappointed, but if you know, I kind of wish I had known going in that it wasn't technically a memoir, but I didn't want that to affect how I viewed the book while I was reading it. So, 6 one way, half a dozen another. 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read, I actually did a reading vlog about, and that is The Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin. This was 100% a 5-star book. I loved it. I couldn't put it down. I don't want to advertise it as a quick read, but it's not outrageously long, and I could not put it down. So I actually read it pretty quickly. And this story is about 4 siblings in the late 60s who go to see a traveling psychic who has just visited their town. And this psychic says that she can tell you the exact day you are going to die. And so they each see her in private, and they are told the day that they will die. And the story follows each sibling separately, which I did not think I would like. I really assumed that this book would be written in the way a lot of novels are written when they change perspective, where it's like this chapter is this character, this chapter is going to be this character, and so on, and it goes back and forth. And it was not like that. It was actually the first part of the book was all 4 siblings going to see the psychic, and then the next section was one of the siblings' story, start to finish. And then the next section was the next sibling, start to finish. And you can see where I'm headed. There were 4 main sections plus the one at the beginning. And it was just such an interesting writing style, because by the time I got to the last sibling, I had really already forgotten a lot about her. It wound up being like 4 separate books, and I really, really liked that. The premise of the story is, will you change how you live your life if you know when you're going to die? And I won't spoil anything for you, but I think as a reader that the answer is yes, you will change how you live your life because you know when it's going to end. And I just thought it was a beautifully written story. I loved each and every character and their story. There were stronger ones. I think my favorite story was Simon's. I just felt like his story was really sad. And I think he, out of everyone, changed his life the most. So if you have any thoughts and opinions on this book, or if you haven't read it, comment below. I highly recommend this book for everyone. In fact, I don't even have it with me because I've already lent it to a friend. It was so good. Definitely my favorite read. Ooh, there's another one that I read at the end of November. I think it might be too soon to say. But that was 100% a 5-star book. One of my favorites that I read this month, and one of my favorites that I read this whole year. The next book I read was Tales of the Peculiar by Ransom Riggs. And this is kind of I don't want to say prequel. It's listed on Goodreads as like a prequel for the Home for Peculiar Children series that he's written. But it's actually the stories collected that he references in the Home for Peculiar Children series. And it's like how these different peculiarities started, how it's like the first of each peculiarity. And it's less than 200 pages. It is considered a like young adult book. And it was really, I thought it was really good. I had very low expectations for this book. I got it for $2 on a bargain table. And I really enjoyed it. I think if I hadn't already read the Home for Peculiar Children series, that I wouldn't have enjoyed it because it wouldn't have made sense. So it's definitely one that you want to read after you've read the series or while you're reading the series. You don't want to read it first. But I thought that it answered a lot of questions, and I thought the stories were very, very wonderfully weird. Like, some of these peculiarities are just like, what is going on in this author's brain? Just so unique. And if you liked that series, I definitely recommend reading it. I gave it a 4-star rating, which is good, but it wasn't a 5. Then I read Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page. And this book was recommended to me and actually given to me as a gift from one of my dearest friends. And he like devoured this whole series. And I thought, okay, I'll read it. And I did like it. I felt that the character development was a little bit weak. If you've watched my vlog that I recorded while I was reading The Immortalists and Dorothy Must Die, you'll know that I felt that the character development was really weak. Had I read this book before The Immortalists, I may have liked it more, but following a book that I give 5 stars, that book has a lot to live up to. This book follows Amy, who is thrown into the land of Oz, obviously, by a tornado, just like Dorothy. But it's the story that comes after what we know as the story of the Wizard of Oz. And Dorothy has come back and has become this like horrible, power-hungry dictator. And it's really a cool concept, actually. I'm not a huge fan of retellings. I have enjoyed several in the past, but it's not my favorite genre. But I did enjoy it. I wound up giving it a 3-star rating out of 5, but I did think that the character development did become better. It took a really long time for me to like the characters in this book or even care about what happened to them. But about halfway through the book, things picked up, and I did really like the ending. I definitely will not tell you what happened at the end because it does set it up for the next book in the series, which I did find out is on Scribd. I am a new subscriber, I guess, to the audio and ebook subscription service called Scribd, and they are all on that. So I think I will finish the series one day, but definitely not my favorite book I read this month. If you like young adult retellings of classic stories, I think it was really good. If you don't like that genre, then you're not going to enjoy the book. But I definitely will finish the series one day, especially since it's on Scribd. Why not? The next book I read was The Haunting by Shirley Jackson, formerly known as The Haunting of Hill House. And I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. It was okay. I felt like I could not get into it. It maybe because it was an older writing style. It was copyrighted in 1959. And I had just read a young adult book. I had just read a contemporary fiction. I had just read a drug addict's memoir. So I don't think I was in the right frame of mind to enjoy this book. I do think I will like the show on Netflix. I've heard it's amazing. So I definitely will be trying that out. But I wound up only giving The Haunting 2 out of 5 stars, which in my opinion is just not that good. But I did read it really quickly. It's only like 240 pages. So if you're looking for a quick read, why not? Give it a try. I didn't enjoy it, but that doesn't mean you won't. And the sneaky book that I was able to just like sneak in my TBR was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And whoa, it was so good. I read it in 2 days. I absolutely devoured this book. Like I just mentioned a little while ago, I am a new subscriber to Scribd, which is an unlimited audio and ebook service, and I needed something to read on my phone. The week of Thanksgiving, my entire household was sick, including the baby. My son got sick right before Thanksgiving break. Then my husband caught it. Then I caught it, and we were all crossing our fingers that the baby wouldn't get it. But of course, since mama caught it, baby caught it, and it was a rough week. That being said, I wanted something that was just going to distract me from how I felt. And I needed something that was easier to hold because I was holding a baby, and a big honkin' like hardback book just does not fit with holding a baby and trying not to wake her. I also wanted the lights out, so I needed something on my phone. So I got on Scribd and I looked up a book and I thought, oh, this is on my TBR. I've heard it's really good. Why not? Could not stop reading it, you guys. It was incredible. 100% a 5-star book. This book follows a 1950s movie star, Evelyn Hugo, and how she came from living in Hell's Kitchen to being a celebrity. And it, of course, as you can tell, the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo, it follows why each husband's section, like it's chronological from how she got married to this husband, then this husband, then this husband, and so on. And why each husband really defines that time of her life. And it is so good. It is so good. The twist at the end, I did not expect. I actually read some other people's reviews, and a lot of people did see that coming. I did not. I think it is a fabulous and important story about a woman's sexuality and how the times really have gone, I mean, from the 1950s to now, present day, how things have changed in terms of acceptance and how things haven't changed in terms of acceptance. And it's such a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. All right, so November wrap up. I read 5 books. I started a 6th. I started The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes, which I will talk about in my December TBR video, which is coming soon. I think that is awesome. I cannot believe I read the 5th book. I wound up having 1 2-star book, 2 3-star books, 1 4-star book, and 2 5-star books. I'd call that a pretty solid month. Make sure to hit subscribe down below and ring that bell so you can get notifications. And I will be seeing you very soon for my December TBR.